The Bhagavad Gita literally means the song of God. And I mention that because when we speak about it, we usually talk about what Lord Krishna said. Here's the teachings, here's the rules, here's the scriptures. But it's not called the speech of God, or the lecture of God, or the teaching of God. It's called the song of God, which to me is really interesting. Because actually in it, it says, and God spoke. When they go through the verses, it literally says, and God spoke. It doesn't say, and God sang. It says, God spoke. But the Gita is the song of God. And here's how I understand that. In our lives, when we're connected to God, there's music. There's music in our lives. When we are in our hearts, there's music. And so even though God spoke, when we listen and when we live, it's music. And for so many of us, life is a struggle. Life is all in our head. What am I going to do about this? How am I going to overcome that? How will I plan this? What about that? And actually, when the Gita comes into our lives, when our connection with God comes into our lives, it pulls us from the head into the heart. And life actually becomes a song. With music, you have to be fully there. If you're stuck in your head, one step ahead, you're worried about the future, the music doesn't flow. Think about if you're giving a concert and you're going to sing a song or you're going to play a song on the piano. And as you're playing or as you're singing, your brain is worried, oh my God, I'm never going to hit the note next verse. Oh my God, that's the one I always have problems with. I'm never going to hit it. I'm going to forget the words. Or there's no music there. The music only comes when you allow yourself to be connected to it. Whether you are the player of music, the maker of music, or you are the listener, the enjoyer of music. Either way, until and unless you allow it to flow through you, the magic of music doesn't happen. The magic of sound doesn't happen. And so the Bhagavad Gita is the song of God, meaning don't try to just understand it with your brain. Don't try to just figure it out with your brain. But actually allow the music to flow through your heart. So let's look at a couple of the real core aspects. First of all, the foundation, you could say, or one of the foundations. Beautiful thing about the Gita is wherever you go in, that teaching seems like the core teaching of the Gita. Choose any of the 700 verses and you can make it the core teaching of the Gita. One of the core teachings is fearlessness, abhayam. Lord Krishna over and over and over, in so many ways, emphasizes to Arjuna, be fearless, stand up. Now, when you look at the actual situation, he's on a battlefield. He's in the middle of a war. If that's not scary, I don't know what is. But Lord Krishna is not giving it. Lord Krishna is not giving it as a platitude. He's not saying, oh, it's okay, Arjun, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. It's not that. It's be fearless, absolutely fearless. Because you are, here is a tool in my hand, and in a chariot that I'm driving. There's a beautiful moment that's not actually part of the Gita, it's part of the Mahabharata that happens prior to actually being on the battlefield, in which Lord Krishna is trying to avert the battle. And he's not able to. He's trying, he's talking to Duryodhana, he's trying to do whatever he can to prevent this war from happening. There's a moment in which both Duryodhana and Arjuna go to Krishna to ask for his help in this imminent battle. And Lord Krishna says, okay, I will help, but I will help you both. You each have a choice. You have a choice between my presence or my army. So either you can have me, but I will have no army, I will lift no weapon, I will not fight at all. Or you can have my entire army. And Duryodhana, in the mind of someone who is calculated planning, calculated planning, not connected in his heart, not loving God, says, well, this is a war. I need your army. What good are just you going to do for me? I'll take your army. And Arjuna says, fantastic, because I just want you. And so when Lord Krishna says, be fearless, there's many aspects of the fearlessness, but an important one to remember is something that happened prior to that, which was Arjuna chose the presence of God, not for what he was going to get. Pujya Swamiji always says, we go to God, but we frequently go with a list of what we want. In Hindi, he says, Isht ke paas jaake list leke. So we go to the divine, but we go with a list. I want this, I want that, do this for me, do that for me. Whereas actually, it's the presence of God that makes everything happen. So Arjuna has chosen the presence of Krishna. Krishna says, be fearless. Stand up. Now, A, because I am driving your chariot. B, you are not the doer. The anxiety comes, the fear comes in thinking I'm the one doing it all. You're not the one doing this. You are not the giver of life. You're not the taker of life. Since when? Since when did you become the one who really gets to decide who lives and who dies? That's your ego, Arjuna. That's your illusion. You're not the giver of life. You're not the taker of life. You are here as an instrument. You are here to do your duty. So stand up fearlessly. He doesn't say, and I promise you won't die. And this is really important because if you think you're about to go into battle, and God says to you, be fearless. Well, that sounds kind of like a really good insurance policy of you won't die. I promise you will win this war. But he doesn't say, be fearless because this war is yours, Arjun. Don't worry about it. You're going to win. It's be fearless because to die in the fulfillment of your dharma is 1,000,000 times better than to live decades more but not doing your dharma, not doing your duty. And so be fearless because what's the worst that's going to happen? You die. You're going to die anyway. If not today, at some point, that we know. But when you die, make sure that you die in the fulfillment of your duty, your dharma. Do not try to take the easy way out. Because Arjun says, forget it. I'm not going to fight. I don't want to fight. I'm scared. The hairs are standing straight up. I'm terrified. I'm weak in the knees. Forget it. This isn't worth it. No amount of land is worth this war. And Lord Krishna basically says to him, you are not going to take the shortcut here. You are not going to take the easy way out here. You are not going to decide, oh, forget it, I'm just going to go and sit and meditate. That is not your duty or your dharma. You are a warrior. You are here to restore dharma. You are a king. A king's duty is to restore dharma to the kingdom. You're not fighting over a piece of land. You're fighting over bringing back dharma. So no corner cutting, no easy way out, no I'll just sit in a cave and meditate. And you are going to stand up and you are going to fight. And if you die, at least you're dying in the fulfillment of your duty, rather than living decades but not doing your duty. And as we talk, I was thinking originally, well, we'll divide them up into different lessons, but as I talk, I realize they actually all flow into each other. So, right, lesson 1, be fearless. Foundation 1, be fearless. But that took us straight into foundation 2, do your duty. That's all we can do. This fear you have, this anxiety you have, this worry you have, that's not going to help. Is weak knees and hair that's standing up going to help you fight the battle? Of course not. All this anxiety is a product of the ego, a product of your ignorance, a product of this illusion that you are the doer. Your only duty is to fulfill your duty. And right here, right now, your duty is to fight this battle. And it's important to remember here that our duty is not always fun. A lot of times people think, well, when I figure out what my dharma is or my purpose is, it's going to be something that's going to be really, really romantic, really grand. It's going to be something that's going to carry a lot of prestige and esteem. It's going to be something that's going to feel good all the time. And this is a perfect lesson. Surely, standing in the middle of a battlefield against your family members, outnumbered, out-armored, out-anchored, literally anchors in bows and out arrowed. Look at the army on the other side. Look at the number of them. Look at their weapons. Look at the number of arrows and the number of bows. Look at us. Not fun. Not enjoyable. Not romantic. And it wasn't like Krishna said to Arjuna, but don't worry. Yeah, this is going to be really, really miserable. But for thousands of years, people are going to remember you. You're going to be the hero that people are going to study. He didn't tell him that. It wasn't that Arjuna knew in that moment, this is the Bhagavad Gita. That which is happening. This is actually the Mahabharata. This isn't actually just my own life story. This is something very big and important. He didn't know that. He knew, I'm a guy. I'm in the middle of a battlefield. I'm facing my family. I'm scared. I don't want to do this. And this is where it's really important to know that our duty here is not always going to feel good. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always what we would choose if life were a buffet. And you got to say, I'd like, a heaping spoonful of that. Lots and lots of, money and two heaping spoonfuls of acclaim. A little bit of wealth over here. It's not a buffet like that. Pass on the misery, pass on the illness, pass on the boredom, pass on the fear. It isn't that. And so as we are called in our life to do our duty, the measure should never be, does this feel big and grand? Does this feel good? Right and good don't necessarily always go together. In the same way that teachers scolding children or parents scolding children doesn't feel good always. It's where parents give in and become softies, right? You look at the child and the child is smiling, very sweet. All right, fine, forget it. Okay, you're not grounded anymore. Right? But we know for discipline, I have to be strong. If I said, if you fail your exam, you don't get to go to the party, well then I shouldn't give in and say, okay, go to the party. I have to be strong. Not always fun. Doesn't always feel good. Sometimes the kid then turns around and says, I hate you. Right? I hate you. You're the worst mom ever. But you do it. A friend of my parents when I was growing up, true story. Close friends, good family, nice people. So one evening at dinner, they had made dinner, and the woman was a very, very good cook. And her son, for whatever reason, decided he didn't like what they were being fed for dinner. And he wanted something different. And Mom said, no, this is what's for dinner. I've just spent the last hour or 2 hours or whatever it was cooking. This is dinner tonight. Eat it or go hungry. And he decided he was going to go hungry. And he storms up and goes to his room. He was maybe 9 or 10 or 11. And about half an hour later, there is a knock on the door. And it is the police who have come because they got a complaint, a 911 call, for child abuse. That they were starving their child. Now, I share this story because, A, it's kind of funny, but B, moments like that don't feel good. You're a good parent, good mom, taking good care of your kid, and suddenly here's the police on your doorstep that you've got to justify. Really, look at him. The kid is well fed. He's not malnourished. No bruises on his body. We're not touching him. We were just trying to force him to eat his dinner. But we do it as parents. We don't give in. She didn't, of course, say, oh, well, now that you called the police on me, okay, I'll make you whatever you want. Because what do the kids learn then? This is the way. So as parents, we know our duty is to be strong sometimes. Whether it's our kid yelling, I hate you, whether it's the police that show up on the doorstep, whatever the ramifications may be. And same in all of our other areas of life. The duty does not always feel good. And this is where, when we think about our scriptures and you think about, well, it's given to us by God. So clearly God had all possibilities of, okay, what's the story going to be in which we're going to give this teaching? Why a battlefield? Why not a picnic? Why not a satsang? Right? I mean, you would think if I were writing a story of teaching, I would have people sitting around in satsang, or I would have a picnic, or we'd be sitting out nicely on the banks of Ganga. It would never occur to me to give teachings when you have all the options in the world. Why choose a battlefield? Because God knew, of course, that these were going to be teachings for thousands of years, forever. God knew that we were going to live in battlefields of our lives and our minds. And so the teaching had to be given there. Because life's not always a picnic. Life's not always sitting in satsang or sitting on the banks of Ganga. Life feels many times like a battlefield. So, okay, here's the teaching. Do your duty. And that brings us into one of the other core teachings, which is you're not the body. So yeah, you may die. As I said, Lord Krishna did not tell Arjuna, be fearless because you've got this one in the bag. Don't worry. I promise, at the end of the day, I actually am going to lift up a weapon. He didn't tell him any of that. The teaching was be fearless, regardless of what happens, as long as you're doing your duty. And you're not the body anyway, so neither are you going to die, nor are you going to be able to kill them. You're not the giver of life or the taker of life. And so that's another very, very core teaching is we are not the body. And there's that beautiful moment in chapter 2 where Lord Krishna takes him through and he says, you are the soul, and the soul cannot be cut with knives and dried by the wind and wet by water, burned with fire. You are the soul, so for God's sake, stop worrying so much about the body. Stop the drama. And it's such a fantastic teaching for all of us. Because that's exactly where we're stuck. We may not be worried about the body getting pierced by arrows of an opposing army in a war. But we're worried about what role this body is going to play. What job am I going to get? What am I going to do? Who am I going to marry? How many kids am I going to have? What are my kids going to do? How do I look in society? Is it a good hair day or a bad hair day? Can I go out yet? Am I ready? Am I happy with what I see in the mirror? Am I not happy with what I see in the mirror? Am I going to spend my hard-earned money and precious time changing what I see in the mirror? Rather than just throwing away the mirror. We're so stuck in the drama of the body. And Lord Krishna gives this beautiful teaching that we are not the body. We are that which was never born and will never die. We are that which is eternal. So really, it matters if you're fair or dark. Really, it matters if your hair is gray or black. Really, it matters a few pounds here and there, a few dollars or rupees here and there. You were never born. You'll never die. You're everything. Stop thinking so small. That fearlessness is rooted in our thinking of ourselves as very small. So when he says be fearless, it's let go of that thinking of yourself as small, let go of the fear, the anxiety, the worry, the stress, the tension. All of the stress today. When Puja Swamiji is abroad on airplanes, frequently, they've got magazines in the seat back of the seat in front of you on airplanes. And I remember when I first met him, and he would flip through these magazines just to see, what was being advertised. What is America advertising? And he would always point out these advertisements for stress management programs. And he'd say, it's so funny. We manage that which we want to save and take care of. He said, we manage our money, we manage our estates. We're managing stress now? That we're actually spending all of this money to go to somebody who's going to teach us how to manage our stress like it's a precious resource like our money? And it always amazed him. He always said we don't need stress management courses, we need self-management courses. And the Gita really gives us that teaching of self-management. If I know the self, that capital S self, then the stress dissipates. Fearlessness can come. It's not fearlessness because I'm psychotic. It's not fearlessness because I'm deluded. Fearlessness because I'm in denial. But fearlessness because I'm so connected with the capital S self, that eternal self, that I'm not stuck in the stress of this limited existence. And the last piece that I want to share, because I do want to make sure that we have time for questions, is throughout the Gita, when Arjuna asks Krishna so many times in so many different ways, well, okay, so how do I get there? How do you get that connection with God? How do you know the capital S self? How do I experience that in me which can't be cut? Because at the moment I feel very much like the one who can be cut. How do I find that? So Lord Krishna, in this song of yoga, right? He says over and over again, this is the teaching of yoga, union. Nowhere in the Gita does he mention anything about straight legs or bent legs or, your palm on the ground. Well, it's amazing. 700 verses on yoga, and nowhere does he mention your legs should be straight or bent. In fact, the only reference to asana is actually a reference to that which we sit upon. So this as an asana, not the asana in which I put my body, not trikonasana, but the asana upon which we sit. And he, as he speaks about that asana, he talks about how to make one out of the natural materials, out of the grasses, how to make one, and how thick it should be. So it's not too thin, not too thick, not too hard, not too soft. I mean, he gives that teaching. And then he says, once you are established in asana, now that you are established in asana, you are ready to begin the practice of yoga. Which I love because it absolutely clarifies any doubt that the asana is the yoga. It's essential. We must do it, must have it, must first be established in asana, whether it's that upon which I sit, or the posture in which I stand or bend or sit. Essential. But it isn't the actual yoga. So in that wasn't actually the final teaching. That was just an aspect laying the groundwork for the final teaching he gives, or that I'm going to share, is as he's giving this, as he's talking about this oneness, this unity. And Arjun's asking, but how? What's the right way? So throughout these 18 chapters, he speaks about different ways. He speaks about bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. He speaks about jnana yoga, the path of wisdom. He speaks about karma yoga, the path of action. And what he makes very, very clear, as he's describing each path, it sounds like he's absolutely advocating for that path as the best path. Read about bhakti yoga, it sounds like this is it. Read about jnana yoga, this is it. Karma yoga, this is it. But what becomes very, very clear as you read further and deeper is that actually the teaching is, it's all one. They're not separate. If you really love God, or love anyone, you will serve them. We were talking about this in a different context the other night. Where there is love, there is service. Even if we don't think about God and we just think about our beloveds here. If someone you love needs something, you're going to do it. Happily. Not because you're looking for a 50-50, now they're going to owe me, or now I'm going to, get something from them. The loved one is sick. You're going to make tea, you're going to make breakfast in bed, you're going to do whatever you need to do to take care of them. Even if they're not sick. You're going to find great joy in doing things for them that make them happy. Doing things for them that they need. I'll surprise him before he gets home. I'll do this, or I'll give her this. I know she loves it. Where there is love, there is always service. And if there's love and there's not service, check the quality of your love. If there's love and you're thinking give and take, 50-50, what am I going to get? Check the quality of your love. Because when there's really love, the giving itself literally becomes its own reward. And as there's love, devotion, bhakti, the service springs most naturally out of it. As does the knowledge and the wisdom. As you love someone, well, you want to learn about them, right? We fall in love and we stay up all night long. Oh, what was your favorite music when you were a kid? What's your favorite color? Oh, you like Italian food? I like Italian food. we melt into wanting to know more about the other. As we melt into love, that quest for knowledge blossoms. Tell me what you're thinking. Oh, it's nothing. No, tell me. A few years later, we're like, forget it, shut up already. But I don't want to know. You don't forget it? Great, thank you. Right? I mean, a few years later, it literally goes the other way. Somebody says to you, what are you thinking? You say nothing. They say, okay. You're like, what, you're not going to ask me again? I mean, obviously, I'm upset. But in the beginning, it's the opposite. In the beginning, you say, what are you thinking? And the loved one says, oh, nothing, don't worry. You say, no, please, tell me, I want to know. I want to know, tell me. We're dying to know everything because we love. So the Bhagavad Gita makes it very, very clear that all of these paths actually are one. They're not separate, any more than God is separate. He also says, in whatever form the devotee worships me, I appear to the devotee in that form, which means that God cannot be separate. So the God that we're connecting with through devotion can be different than the God we're connecting with through knowledge or the God we're connecting with through service. It's all one. And so all of the ways in are one. They're just different ways of thinking about it. But this is where it's so crucial in our lives to ensure that our yoga is full. One of the streams is going to inevitably be easier for us. Some people have more of a characteristic of intellectual, okay, I'm going to go in through the books, I'm going to go in through the lectures, I'm going to go in through study. Okay, great. But as you learn, you're going to have to feel. As long as those teachings remain in your head and they don't touch your heart, it's just purely academic. It's not actually knowing. It's someone else's truth, not your truth. You've got to let it in. You've got to go from knowing to loving. And in the same way, if the easiest way in for you is loving, great, love. But remember the importance of serving. Many years ago, we were in South Africa visiting, well, we were there for a very large event, but there's a family of devotees who live in South Africa, and they lived it's about a 4-hour drive from the airport. And they had taken us there by private plane, and we had spent a night there with them. And then we were driving back to the airport the next day. And I had calculated very clearly what time we needed to leave in order to get there, based on what they had actually told us the day before of how many kilometers it is. It was in the days before, Google Maps. But they told us how long it was, and we knew how early we had to get to the airport. And the couple were very, very devoted. They were just beautiful bhakti yogis. And they had this beautiful temple room, and they were doing puja in the morning. And I went and I said quietly, I think we need to leave for the airport. And they said, yeah. And it's hard. I mean, people are doing puja. They're sitting in front of God. You don't want to come off as, a nervous wreck and pulling them out of their puja. So we waited. And another half hour went by. And I went again, and I said, I really think we're getting really late. And yeah, don't worry, we're finishing our puja. We have to finish our puja. Okay. And what are you going to say? So they finally finished their puja an hour later. And at this point, we're convinced we're absolutely going to miss our flight because there is just no way to drive the number of kilometers it is to the airport in the time that we need to make the flight. And the man says, oh, don't worry. I know where all the police stay on that highway. They're only in these two places. Don't worry, we will get you there. And we get in the car, and he proceeds to drive at the most terrifying speed. I don't know exactly how fast it was. It was truly terrifying. And passing everybody, I mean, it was probably 200 kilometers an hour. I mean, it was something insane. And because he literally had an hour and a half to get us to the airport on what was a 4-hour drive. And Puja Swamiji signals to him from the back. He was in silence. He observed silence in the morning. Sometimes he taps him on his back. And the guy says, oh, don't worry. Swamiji, slow down. And finally, when Puja Swamiji's silence opens, he says to them, he says, do you really think God is going to be happy with you for killing your guru on the highway because you sat in puja? The puja is beautiful. Do it. But don't do it to the jeopardy of the life of your guru in the car. And I love that particular story because it's such a beautiful example of really what happens. I'm loving God, I'm doing this, and we forget that there's actually a world out there that is God, whether it's actually our guru in the car, or whether it's, as I said on the banks of Ganga today, that Krishna says, I am Ganga. I am the Himalayas. And so our love of God requires us to serve God. And so whether it's actually specifically serving Ganga, serving the Himalayas, serving humanity, but that love, that bhakti, absolutely requires engaged action, committed service. And so all of these paths that he gives us, start however you want. Get into that river however you want. But recognize that all of the paths actually are one, and make sure that your yoga is full. So I could do this all night, but I'm going to actually end here so that we have time to take any questions that there are. And my only request before them, as I had said earlier, is that they be somewhere on this subject of the Gita, but also allow them to be questions that actually pertain to you and your life and your truth. They don't have to be deeply personal questions, but try not to make them just esoteric philosophy. Because as I said on the banks of Ganga, the point of the Gita is to live it. And so try to allow the questions or phrase the questions in a way that it's about your living of the Gita, rather than just an extra piece of esoteric knowledge so that you can go back and tell it to someone. or appease, an intellectual academic aspect of your mind. But how can it be something that allows that song to be there in our lives?